Cleveland Browns have won 4 out of their last 5
All
games.
of my bobbleheads are officially throwback. This one's for you.
This is a big one for me. You know?
So as the world shuts down, or at least many sports talk shows start to resemble what we've been doing for years and years, upon decades, we have been doing this style of podcast in remote locations, socially distancing ourselves from one another and many of the people that aren't Browns fans. We are here again amongst the quarantine to talk some Cleveland Browns, maybe not some Cleveland Cavaliers, maybe not some Cleveland Indians, because there is no news that is really interesting. But just like everyone else in sports, we're going to be talking NFL free agency. We're going to be talking the NFL draft. And there's been some big news for the Browns.
Yeah.
You know, maybe some changing opinions here. So, you know, a couple moves made by the Browns. Eric, let's start with you first here. You know, give us a little overview of what the Browns have done, and has your opinion changed for the Browns leadership?
Okay, well, yeah, we'll start with the Austin Hooper and the Jack Conklin deals. So, you know, I definitely have a positive feeling that the team is actually going for it, and by that I mean not necessarily going for a Super Bowl, that's the ultimate goal, but at least going for a chance to be competitive, to win the division, to be a good team, not stripping it back, not tearing it down the way former regimes have done. You know, they've made smart decisions, in my opinion. Those two were very good signings. I think Hooper's going to be the number one tight end for years. I don't know what Njoku's place will be on the team. I think he'll be on this roster next year. We'll see what happens. If he has a great year, they can extend him to that 5th-year option, go from there. Hooper should be here for 3 years. We needed a solid tight end. We've had a couple flash in the pans, Gary Barnidge, Jordan Cameron, a couple one-off good seasons by tight ends, and hopefully Hooper can do this for multiple years. We don't need to talk about that guy in the 2000s that is still in court, I think. So
I was hoping for an Evan Moore reference there. We were
Moore,
ready
yes.
for an Evan Moore one.
He had one good year, but that's the trend. And then Conklin, I really liked. I think that was a smart deal by what the Browns did. I think it's a win-win for both parties. Conklin's getting hits a salary cap, you know, these first year or two, whereas money can be used in, you know, at the end of his contract to try to re-sign Baker, re-sign Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, if they want to get that second contract. That frees up the money. And then on the Conklin side, you know, that gives him the win that if he proves that he gets the next deal after this, he's not saddled with a 5-year contract with all these new revenue streams, provided the economy's okay by then, that we're going to have to increase salary cap that he would be potentially losing out. He could potentially, you know, hit that market, hopefully with the Browns. But I think those are win-win, and I think the Browns realized he's going to be the starting right tackle, maybe left tackle, but the odds are that they will be supplanting himself with another bona fide, hopefully, left tackle, I guess, for the next decade plus. So, coming in, I had my reservations with Andrew Berry. I think those are two smart moves. You look at the Case Keenum deal, you know, I think he's a good veteran backup. I think he's late years ahead of Drew Stanton and that other guy from Austin, Texas. Yeah.
Garrett Gilbert.
Garrett Gilbert, yes. And he knows the system that Stefanski runs. I think that was another smart move. The Browns picked up 2 other guys, but I'm gonna not talk about all the guys. I'll let Drew touch on those guys. The long and short of those 2, I think they're fine. I think what we're trying to do is just try to patch up some holes, or at least, try to keep things manageable, and then kind of hit these targets, these areas of weaknesses in the draft, and hopefully the keyword is hit. We don't need poor draft picks that kind of set us back, but I think I said it in a prior podcast is I'm going to give Andrew Berry a chance, and from what I can see, this is looking like a solid free agency. Not great, not awful, but like a solid B minus. I'm okay with that. I don't need A pluses in free agency because a lot of the times the people that win free agency don't do anything in the actual season. So I'm eager to see what happens in the draft. I don't know how the draft's going to actually happen, especially with all these changes. But if it's how it was in the mid to late 90s, I'll be happy with that. And I'm hoping, most importantly, the Browns come away with 7 to 12 great prospects and, continue that good run in the fall.
Yeah, Drew, there's been so many moves this free agency. It has been a good free agency period. Brady going to the Bucks, Rivers going to the Colts, a lot of big name players that are going to other places. But man, I'm going to answer the question before you do. I'm trapped already. Like when I hear that question, who's going to be contending in the AFC? It's like the Browns. Come on, look at this offense. Don't they have your full belief after all these changes to the offense?
Yeah, I mean, if I am pleasantly surprised, right? I was a big critic when I heard that they weren't going to be bringing back Kirksey and Schobert. I still believe that to be a mistake. But there was also rumors they were going to be cutting Olivier Vernon so that they could just throw some salary cap space at defensive end. That hasn't happened yet. It doesn't look like that's going to happen. That's an excellent move. I almost look at that as them signing Olivier Vernon to a one-year deal because at this time last week, at this time 2 weeks ago, it was widely reported that they were moving on from him, that there was a massive hole. And the way I look at it is they've essentially signed Olivier Vernon to a one-year deal, which I think is perfect. So if you factor that into free agency, which in my head I'm doing, maybe you're not, I don't know, but to me, you come away with Olivier Vernon on a one-year deal. You add Karl Joseph, who's a former first-round pick. He's only 26 years old. He didn't get the kind of money he was looking for, so he signs a one-year deal with the Browns where he knows he's going to be the starter. There's nobody behind him at strong safety. They're not going to draft anyone in the first 2 rounds for that spot. That is his spot. I think he's a really good player. I like PFF, and they have him as a 69.9 rating, which is pretty good. Certainly above average to good. He's not in the very good realm, but that's 38th out of 102 qualifying safeties. So, that is certainly an upgrade to what they had last year, especially after Morgan Burnett got hurt in that Steelers game. There was a big drop-off after that. So Karl Joseph is an upgrade on Morgan Burnett, which is a very big upgrade compared to what we saw here in Cleveland those last 6 or 7 games. So that's going to be big. He's also he had a 78.2 run grade, which is 13th among 102 qualifying safeties. He's an excellent run stopper. He's a big hitter. He's your prototypical in the box strong safety. He also graded out very highly when he was lined up in the box. So I'm hopeful that they shift towards that, more of a single high look. I think that's the strength of this team, and that matches up well versus what teams like the Ravens and Steelers like to do, which is to get the run game going. Which brings me to the next signing, which was linebacker B.J. Goodson. He played most recently for the Packers, but before that for the Giants. And this is a good depth signing. This is a downgrade from Joe Schobert. This guy is not as quick as Joe Schobert. He struggles in coverage, but he is a very sure tackler. He can be an inside linebacker. He can play in sort of a base defense on first down. He can play goal line. He can play short yardage. He can stop the run, which, again, is something that they really struggled with. This is a team that has struggled to stop the run forever, and it looks like they are moving towards that in free agency, which is great. I obviously would have liked to have kept Kirksey or Schobert, one of the two, as my starting inside linebacker, and then signed B.J. Goodson as my depth guy. And that unit, I think, would have been pretty well set. But as it is. I think they just need one more, what I would consider a good starter or a young rookie with some upside potential, which I think they can get in the third round, and hope that that either Taki or Mac Wilson make a big jump. So I really like what they've done in free agency. I was a big skeptic. I'll be honest with them. I was wrong about what this front office was going to do. I did not think that they would use this cap space, because they haven't in the past. This is, analytics says you don't go out and spend a whole bunch of money in free agency, but they have, and I think they've gotten a lot better. And it is my genuine hope that in the years to come, that's my magic number in free agency. You sign one guy, one difference maker, one guy to his second contract, whatever that might be. The Browns will have the salary cap space to be able to do this as guys from before roll off the roster, as Karl Joseph and Olivier Vernon, as Sheldon Richardson roll off onto their third contracts, which you're not going to sign. You make one signing in free agency, get better by one guy every year, replace what you lose, and then you build the rest through the draft. And I think they can do it. I think they're in a good place to do it. And I am encouraged about what they've done thus far. So definitely off to a good start. And I'm pleasantly surprised, right? I did not like what I was hearing, and certainly the first start of it, losing two linebackers and what I thought was Olivier Vernon. But to come out of this with what I think is a really good tight end in Austin Hooper, what I think is a starting caliber right tackle, which they desperately needed in Jack Conklin, and to get a starting strong safety in Karl Joseph, that is three starters that they've been able to get. That's three pretty big signings that they've been able to make. And from what I've seen, they've only really lost one starter at linebacker. So I think now, after today, that this team is better than they were before, which is not something that I was prepared to say a week ago.
Yeah, it does seem like a pretty intelligent approach from those Ivy Leaguers in the front office.
There you go.
Yep.
Maybe they're onto something.
Yeah.
I love. Go ahead, Signer.
What I've noticed, I don't know if you guys are probably aware, being Browns fans, is that historically in the mid-2000s, late 2000s, they were signing guys on their third contracts. Yep. And then recently they were letting guys walk after their first contracts. Yep. That's when you need to pounce. Obviously, the salaries are going to elevate after your first contract, but those guys that are worth it, those are the guys you sign. So I'm glad to see, albeit there was a Joe Schobert walking, at least they signed a couple guys that were going into their second contract. So that is another reason that gives me a little bit better feeling than what we have been historically. We're not signing guys that are way past their prime.
So Conklin, Hooper, Joseph, all in their mid-20s on that second contract or about so. Some intelligent pickups there, but there is still some work to do, even though it seems like our offense is stacked, at least at the skilled positions. If we could hold on to Kareem Hunt, they placed a second-round tender on him. Hopefully Kareem Hunt is here for the next season as well. But there's still some holes. There's still the draft. There's still some free agent signings out there. So, Drew, I'm going to go back to you here. What do you think the Browns do? Is there more left to go here in free agency? And what do you think the adjusted positions of need are going into the draft?
Yeah, I think we can all agree that the biggest need is at left tackle, right? I mean, they don't have a player that can play that position right now. They flat out don't, right? So, they're obviously going to be looking to address that with the 10th pick in the draft. There are 4 very high caliber offensive tackles. It is the strength of this draft. And beyond that, there are a couple of guys like Ezra Cleveland that might be available in a trade down type of a situation. I think there's probably going to be 6 to 7 first-round offensive tackles, and I think 4 of those are going to be gone in the top half of the draft, maybe within the first 11 picks, with the New York Jets looking to upgrade their offensive line as well. So I think that's certainly the number one choice. I think you address that in the draft. Which leaves us with the rest of the holes, right, that we have to fill between the second round pick throughout and then with what's left of free agency. I personally have it once you get past left tackle, that my next biggest areas of need Again, this is after left tackle. Number one for me is nickel cornerback. This is just a case of I don't see anybody on the roster who I would trust to do that. I think that's a pretty big area of need. That's an issue because this is not a very good defensive back class. Jeffrey Okudah is a great player, right? We all saw him at Ohio State. He's going to be one of the top 5 picks in the draft, and then after that, there's not a lot of guys that I would trust there. So that's going to be an area that I would love to see in free agency. I don't happen to know of anyone that I would trust to play that position. But that's an area I would love to see them make some sort of quality signing of a guy that can be, average at nickelback. I think that's a really good look at this photograph.
I was thinking that. I was going to say
a really good signing in free agency. So I would love to see that in free agency. Beyond that, I have my next biggest area of need is actually free safety. There's some hope that Redwine can play that position, but in my head, I can't. When I think about Sheldrick Redwine, I can't think about anything else other than Joe Mixon just absolutely plowing this dude into the turf at Paul Brown Stadium. I mean, he looked like a speed bump, and so I am very concerned about that position.
Come on, it's 1 year.
1 year, I know, but in theory, he can get better. He can play that position, which is why I have it as after nickel cornerback, and then from there it's just depth along the defense. It's just a very thin roster defensively, which is an issue because the strength of the draft is the offensive line and the wide receiver position. So I'd like to see them in that first round and maybe the third round look, left tackle obviously in round 1 and then wide receiver with one of those third round picks. So I would love to see some sort of starter at linebacker. I know we have some more draft talk we're going to get to in a little bit. I have some names for you. But I have linebacker as a definite need that I think they might be able to address in the third round. And then I'll always be a defensive line guy. This will always and forever be one of my top 5 needs. So I'm going to list defensive line depth. Very good starters, quality starters on the front 4. Major question marks behind them. I would love to see them get some sort of edge help, probably through the draft this year. There are a couple of names I like. I don't know if they'll be there in the third round though.
All right, Eric. We'll call an audible here. Why won't the Browns draft a left tackle with their first pick in this upcoming draft?
Well, the only reason you guys know my what I've been saying is there's only really one reason why you do not take an offensive tackle, and that is if Jeffrey, right? Jeffrey Simmons is the other guy. Isaiah Simmons falls to number 10. That is the only reason you do not take a left tackle. He is a stalwart defensive player. I don't even want to call him. You can call safety, linebacker. He's just a great defensive player. And I'm hoping that somebody will say, I don't know what position he plays. He'll keep dropping, and then he falls to number 10. But that's the only reason why I'm the Browns GM. That's the reason why I'm not taking an offensive tackle. Despite these 2 picks that we just got, or 2 acquisitions we just got at defense, the defense is far from a complete project, and I could rattle off a couple names, but Isaiah Simmons would definitely help this defense out tremendously. What I would say is 2 areas, despite getting 2 signings, I still need safety, secondary help, and linebacker, despite, like I said, both these 2 being signed, especially if they do go with the offensive tackle in the first round. I mean, Clinton Dix is still out there, DJ Swearinger, both of them, they were highly touted, could have been somewhat underperforming. Maybe you could get a good year out of them. It'd be a stopgap for the next guy. Both of them are making between $2 and $4 million. They're not going to break the bank. I could see a one year, 2-year contract out of both of them. I don't think they're going to re-sign Demarius Randall. And I would have said Andrew Sendejo prior to the Karl Joseph signing because he's also a strong safety. He has that history with Stefanski in Minnesota. It's a lot less likely now unless they want to move somebody inside as more of a nickel role for maybe Joseph, but that's a lot to ask, so I don't think that's going to happen. Looking at the linebacker positions, I had a couple outside backers, but with the B.J. Goodson, I don't think that's going to happen anymore. Nigel Bradham and Tahir Whitehead, both are solid players. Again, they're going to come pretty cheap. Bradham, maybe $5 million a year. He's been pretty solid in Philadelphia. And Tahir Whitehead, $3 million a year has been his average, with the Raiders the last few years. The only other option I guess I could see that's realistically for this team, again, even if they would sign him, I would still take Simmons at number 10, is maybe an inside linebacker. You have 2 project guys, underperformers, and 1 solid guy who can maybe give you 1 good final year, and that would be either Jake, Ryan, or Kamale Correa. I think I got his name right.
Got it.
Both of them were pretty
Yes.
highly touted, and both of them have somewhat underperformed. You just give them that shot. Hopefully they could, come back and, do what they were supposed to do. You can get them for cheap. And then the veteran guy who I think has a history with Joe Woods in Denver is Wesley Woodyard. I think he's going in his 11th or 12th season. Hopefully he could be that veteran leader for 1 year, give me a second. The guy we had that was from Arizona, inside linebacker. Yeah, do that role that he was 5 or 6 years ago. I can't think of his
Andre
name right
Miller?
now, but he was
Andre
Christian
Davis?
Kirksey's.
Or Andre
No.
Davis?
No, it's Christian
Sorry.
Kirksey's mentor.
Cavs.
I can't think of his name right now.
Man.
I wasn't expecting on talking about him tonight, so that's why I did not have his name written down. Carlos Dansby. There we go.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Oh,
Do
yes,
like a
okay,
Carlos Dansby
okay.
role, have 1, maybe 2 good years, or at least, kind of be that veteran leadership for 1 more season to Taki and Mac Wilson and maybe Isaiah Simmons or somebody else, 3rd, 4th rounder for this team. I think they could have, some filling of those holes on this roster, especially on the defensive side of the ball, as they're, like I said, still far from a finished product. But if they go offensive line, great. But I would still like some defensive, solid veterans, leaders, especially like a guy like Woodyard that could really help this group out. And if they do go with Simmons, and if you have a guy like Woodyard, I think they'll be okay.
So we're just going to be stuck in our basements here for the foreseeable future. So we will have future podcasts talking about the draft, going into more detail. What are the Browns going to do here in future weeks? But free agency has gone off and it's entertained us. A lot of news. Tom Brady has entertained a lot of people. We're not feeling bad about Boston with a lot of this news. I think they've been on top of the world for quite enough time.
That's enough. 25 years.
Yep.
You
I'm
can
sorry.
wait.
I'm sorry, Boston, but you've had a good run. But upcoming, the free agency news has been pretty fun, but the NFL draft is coming up. It isn't going to be the party that they've had at the NFL draft in recent years. I was there in Chicago when they had the NFL draft,
I was
participating
there in Philadelphia when they had it. Yeah.
You were there in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So it's been a party. We want it to come to Canton and Cleveland. That would be a heck of a party as well. Not
Supposed to
going
be
to be
next
in,
year. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, not going to be in Vegas. Seems like it's going to be some sort of virtual draft. So Eric, we'll go back to you here once again. What do you think the NFL should do for the NFL draft this season? Is it boring? Should they mess with the format? What would you like to see with this NFL draft?
Well, what the NFL draft should do and what I want them to do are probably 2 different things. I love the 1980s, 1990s, bring up a card. Those are some of my favorite memories / videos that I've seen. Granted, you still couldn't even do the thing they used to do in Times or Radio City Music Hall, where you just had fans waiting and you just see the commissioner read off a card and say blah blah blah, and you see all the Jets fans get upset. I mean, that was just humorous. You didn't have like a big crowd of people that you couldn't even tell whose fans of whose. I just felt like that was too much. Yeah. But as far as what the NFL could do, boy, that's a tough question because right now we're in a place where you're not going to have a lot of people. I mean, I guess you could have this streaming, try to get as many people to have their eyeballs on it as possible. Um, yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, what we're doing now is, awesome, and I hope we can kind of promote that within the NFL. Hopefully, NFL can take this from us and kind of say like, kind of just communicate with your friends watching the draft and talk about, oh, so and so is a good pick, so and so is a bad pick. The Browns should take so and so, and kind of go from there. As far as Vegas is concerned, not necessarily the actual location, but the betting. I've heard that they were betting on temperatures now on different cities on a day-to-day basis because there are no sports. So, assuming the draft is back on next month, we could go back to that to say number of quarterbacks taken by pick so-and-so, or who goes first, player X or player Y. Or,
they have all these bets available right now.
We need that.
Number of quarterbacks taken in the first round, over under 3.5, something like that. There's all kinds.
So, yeah, I mean,
4.5.
that would definitely help. But, yeah, I mean, selfishly for us, I think that'd be a good idea to, like, either have some type of communicative thing or have some interactions with our populace fans and try to see how gauge the fan reaction as to what's going on and if we're happy or not. And that's kind of all we can do now. I mean, like I said, it's kind of tough. I mean, you can only do so much with not having a great attendance at the actual event. So I'm sure the NFL will come up with something. I'm sure they'll find a way to boo Roger Goodell, assuming he's still there. But I don't know. It'll be interesting. Obviously, you still watch, but if it's not as much show as it has been the last couple of years, I'm not going to be upset.
Drew, you've got Roger Goodell's ear. How are you going to pitch him on what the NFL should do with the draft?
I think that they should have a dunk tank with Kuiper and McShay and some of the NFL Network guys, and that they should do like a mock draft thing where with the next pick, those guys have to predict who they're going to take, and anybody that gets them wrong gets dunked in the Bellagio, and they got to get up and they got to keep doing their segment. Tell me you wouldn't watch. Tell me you wouldn't watch that. Tell me you don't want to see what Mel Kiper's hair looks like wet. Like, tell me you wouldn't watch that right now. Yes, you would, you liar. Yes, you would. That's the first thing I'd do. The second thing I'd do, I'd certainly keep it at Thursday, Friday, Saturday. There's times when you guys used to throw the draft party that it was fun to have this like as a weekend thing, but there's no other sports on. I think maybe you even extend this thing further. Like, I know that's blasphemy, but if there's still quarantine, if there's still no baseball games, if there's still no basketball and hockey games, like what the heck else do we have to do? Let's break this thing apart. Let's go first round, second, third, maybe break it up fourth and fifth. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, right? But definitely the dunk tank, and you get some more feedback from the crew that's there, some sort of game, some sort of tracker as to who's called what, as to whose big board turned out to be correct, some sort of accountability, because people are going to be watching this year, and if we can do that, they'll know this is who knows what they're talking about for the years to come. Put your money where your mouth is. Everybody's going to be watching you, and it's not like that we can cut to like a bar that has a whole bunch of fans in Cleveland celebrating or hating the pick, or you can't cut to a bar on the Ohio River to see the fans react when they draft Joe Burrow, right? It's not going to work like that. So yeah, there needs to be something that gets people interested. And yeah, I think that'd be fun, and some sort of prize, have the NFL chip in $250,000 to the winner's charity, whoever participates in this thing. I know Mayock used to do it for the NFL Network. Whoever their guy is now, put him up there with some of those ESPN guys. Have a little joint collaboration with it, and have fun with it, because you're the only game in town. everybody's going to be watching you. There's plenty of eyeballs to go around, and I think they should try to have some fun with it. Just because you're not going to be able to see all the players gather. They're not going to walk across the stage and hug and handshake and all that other stuff. But I think you can put on a really good quality broadcast, and if you give people a reason to sort of keep track of who's been picked and to stay tuned, I think you'll get excellent ratings. So there you go. That's my suggestion.
Yeah, I've really liked the videos I've put out by Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, Stephen Colbert, their do-it-yourself late-night television shows. And I think it would be cool if the NFL would follow that lead, just like us. We're doing it ourselves from home.
Sure.
And putting these videos together in our basements. How fun would that be if everyone who is drafted is putting together what is their message? It's them streaming from their home. It's not so overproduced. It's not this glamorous event that everyone is seeing, but it's a little bit more of, you're there, you tell your story, just like everyone who is trapped inside of their house gets to tell their story. We still have the internet until we overwhelm that and that shut down. But yeah, that's what I would love to see. And yeah, well, it will hopefully keep us entertained if we are still stuck in our basements. Give us something to watch, because there's no XFL.
No.
Horrible news. No XFL.
Yeah. Devastating.
No
Hopefully
picks.
that'll get Cardell's mind right for 2021. Couple months off. Yeah,
we can hope so.
Last couple games.
All right. Well, thank you guys. I look forward to the next time we talk. Dude,
I've got Spark scores for defensive draft. Well, hey, on the next episode of the I Still Believe in Cleveland podcast, we get into the Spark scores of the available defenders in the NFL draft.
If I could, you're good. If I could have one, I have a shout out to my. I have a new addition to my background from my late sister. She's joining my father. So.
Oh, wonderful!
Yeah, it's been a tough week, but we move forward, and this is for you guys, and yeah, go Cleveland, and that's all I need to get into it about right now. So
okay,
here we go.
Well, thank
if
you.
If you want to know why there's a picture of me and a couple people from Ohio State game, that's the reason why.
There you go, man.
Yeah, we're trying to find some normalcy and some tough times, especially tough times for you, Eric. So
yeah.
Thank you for joining us, and our thoughts and prayers with you. And thank you guys for joining, and I hope that we can continue this normalcy and continue just talking some Cleveland sports. Talk to you guys again next week.
All right, later.